I'm out here on an inspection and I'm taking a look at the water here, and I'm going to show you a defect that's real dangerous and it's real easy to fix. And I'm going to turn the camera around, and this water here, this is a 2008 Whirlpool. As you can see, we've got some polybutylene piping here. They had some problems with this piping back in the day, and you see the newer PEX. This is the new standard and has been for quite some time. They've had some problems with these pipes leaking, busting. It's not an everyday occurrence, but it does happen, and that's why we like to see the newer PEX here. And one thing I always try to get people to do, I don't really call it out, but I probably should more often, is the electrical wiring. Probably 50–75% of the time it's not shielded. It's normally not going to cause anybody a big deal. Usually people just put a broom or something in here. As long as they don't knock on it or hit it with something sharp, it's probably going to be okay. If it's looks like it's weathered real good, or it's sticking out, or I don't see the ground wire right here, this is probably the most important wire on the whole water heater, your ground with your green screw. You should always see a bare wire wrapped around this screw right here, because if there's a short and you touch any part of this water heater, you're going to get shocked or electrocuted, and that's really bad news, especially with 220. But the main thing I want to show you today is it's a temperature pressure relief valve discharge pipe. And here is your relief valve. I'm just going to take this off here and show you. This is the temperature pressure relief valve. And once it reaches a certain temperature, what happens is, if there's pressure and or temperature that exceeds a certain amount, what will happen is this discharge valve will open up, and it opens up pretty much all of a sudden. When it reaches its threshold, it just pushes all the water out of here. It releases the tension, so you don't have a water heater that's going to explode. And if you want to see the damage that a water heater can do, all you gotta do is go on Mythbusters, go on YouTube, Google Mythbusters water heater, and these things will go through 2 floors and go several hundred feet in the air before it comes back down. But that's the main thing here about this temperature pressure relief valve. So too much pressure, it opens up. Too high temperature, it opens up. And either way, you're going to have pressurized, hot, scalding water coming out here, and you don't want it spraying on anybody. It can get on. If somebody's standing here, when it goes off, it's going to scald them and it's going to cause damage. And another thing here, if nobody's here at the home, this water is just going to spray everywhere. It's not even going to go in the pan. It's just going to splatter everywhere. But what you need to have is either a PEX, preferably a copper tube, and that copper tube has to be the same diameter of this 3/4 inch opening here. In other words, you can't take 3/4 inch PEX, for example, and substitute it for a 3/4 inch copper pipe. And the reason being is PEX is thicker on the inside. The inside diameter is less than 3/4 of an inch, and you cannot compress this opening down. In other words, it's got to be 3/4 inch all the way down, and it should extend within 6 inches of the floor. And it has to be solid. There can't be a valve on it, and the bottom of that tube cannot be threaded. And basically what that does is prevent somebody from putting a cap on it. I see these going through the floor, which is really a good idea. Ideally, you'd want this going down through the floor, a hole drilled, put it down, seal it up. That way, if there is a discharge, it's going to go down in the crawl space. If you have a slab, of course, you don't have that option. But if you got a crawl space, the water is going to do a whole lot less damage just going all the way down, to the ground or the vapor barrier. But I just want to show you that another reason it can't be threaded is, let's say it goes down to the crawl space and somebody's up under there and they see this pipe with a thread on it and they think it needs to be capped off. They cap it off, they seal it up. As the water heater fails and the pressure relief valve opens up, it's not going to get any relief. It's going to hit that cap and just block, and the water heater is going to explode. But anyway, this is a real good example of what you do not want to see, and all home inspectors must call this out if there's one missing, or if it's not within 6 inches of the floor, if it's threaded, if it's 3/4 inch PEX, that's not going to cut it. You probably need to go to a 1 inch PEX before the inside diameter. And another thing I want to call out, it's not happening on here, but if you see any water dripping whatsoever, and I stick my finger up under these that are exposed, and if you feel any water at all, this needs to be changed out immediately. We don't open valves. We're not allowed to open these TPR valves. Are allowed to test them. The way you would test them is to pull this up, and it'll pull the spring-loaded valve open and water will discharge. But what I like to do every now and then is just turn it like so and see if any water drips out of it. That's another test I always do. And if it does have a pipe, I like to stick my finger up inside the pipe to see if it's wet. This should be completely dry, and if it's not, it needs to be replaced.